Yo, what's up everybody? It's your boy Mood616 here, and thank you once again for stopping in for another 1990 What video. This is episode Dux, and yeah, so if this is the first time you're stopping in for this series, basically the whole premise behind this series is to showcase certain films, you know, that may have been overlooked or forgotten, or films that people didn't even know about that came out in the 90s. I'm not here to have an argument to say that the 90s was a great decade, because like I said in the last video, the consensus is, even for myself, you know, as a whole, the 90s was not a great decade. We all know that. But it does have a lot of films to offer to the horror fan. And that's generally the point of the series. I really just wanted to kind of, you know, pick out some of those films that may have been overlooked due to the fact of them specifically coming out in the 90s. I did say last video, and it's every week, every day, I almost hear people either write or in videos talk about how they never checked out a certain film because it was in the 90s, or they are checking out a film right now and, you know, it's probably going to be shit because it came out in the 90s and stuff like that. I get kind of tired of hearing that, and it's just, it kind of spreads this bad vibe that there's nothing good from the 90s, and there really is. You just have to kind of dig through. It's kind of like picking for music, and, you know, you got to go digging, and, you know, for collectors, so you got to go digging through all the shit to find the hidden gems. And there is a lot to offer from the 90s, and yeah, that's basically the whole premise of this whole series. So without further ado, we'll try to keep this intro a little bit short. We'll get into 5 more films that I really think that people need to check out, and yeah, let's get into this first one here. Alright, so first film here is coming straight out of 1991, and it is one that definitely needs to have a bigger and maybe more prevalent, like maybe Region 1 release. It does have a couple releases, you know, in Region B and things like that, but it is one that I think just has absolutely no love out there because it just doesn't have those bona fide great releases. Of course, in 1991, directed by Dan O'Bannon, and it is called The Resurrected, also known as Shatterbrain. The Resurrected actually is the original title to this film. Of course, directed by Dan O'Bannon, who wrote and directed Return of the Living Dead. And he also wrote lots of stuff. Dan O'Bannon was mostly known as a writer. He wrote Aliens, you know, screenplays for Aliens and things like that. He wrote a lot of really great screenplays. So with Return of the Living Dead, going into this film, I was expecting it to be a little bit more comical. I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest, because, I mean, I've seen a lot of his films. And even for myself, this was relatively a newer watch, because this was a very hard film to find. Yeah, this is a Region 2 release here, and unfortunately, I think it's only been released on VHS here in Region 1, and I think the VHS is very hard to find. And so it's one of those films that, you know, has an excuse why people haven't seen it, so. But yeah, The Resurrected, I did a full-length review of this one too, so if you guys want to check that one out, but we're going to talk about this on the series since it is from 1991. Basically, this one is about Chris Sarandon plays Charles Dexter Ward. You know, this is all based off the H.P. Lovecraft story, and you know, he is being investigated by his wife. Now, his wife has just kind of left him, and she's very curious on, you know, what he's up to in this house. He's living in this isolated house out in the woods, and he's doing all these weird experiments and things that are going on that nobody really knows what's going on. So she hires on a PI, a private investigator, to investigate her husband, and to, you know, she wants to get to the bottom of what he is doing, because she still loves him, but she's just freaked out. He, you know, Chris Sarandon's character, Charles Dexter Ward, he's very eccentric, and he's very in his own ways, and he's kind of, you know, he's left himself all alone, and he's not telling anyone what he's doing. So, you know, that's the general premise of the film right there. This one right here it's a really good take on the Charles Dexter Ward story by H.P. Lovecraft. It's been a while since I've read this story, but I think the material presented here in the film is very good, you know, in comparison to the material in the story. It's a really well-acted film. I think Chris Sarandon does a great job as Charles Dexter Ward. Actually, in fact, everyone does a good thing, but, you know, the greatest thing about this film is that the screenplay was written by Dan O'Bannon, and Dan O'Bannon, being a writer, does a really good job at developing all the characters in this film, and developing a really decent pace for a film that's, you know, roughly about 100 minutes long. Now, there's not the whole lot of characters in this film, but what he does with them, you really get invested in the time and stuff, and you'll be thankful that you invested in these characters, because once the second half of the film hits and all the meat and potatoes starts happening in the third act and stuff, it becomes a lot more, you feel like you've invested some time, and the payoff is there. So It's a very, very cool film. I really like the whole premise of this one. You know, typical H.P. Lovecraft, twists and turns and things like that. But the second half of the film, it kind of gets, you know, like the first half of the film, it doesn't really feel so much like a horror film. It's kind of strange. But then the second half happens and it gets very, even more mysterious. You're like, hey, what the hell's this guy up to and stuff. It's a good film. It's a really good film. It's, you know, a little bit suspenseful. It's very atmospheric. I love the locations and the settings of this film and stuff. But it's definitely one, if you're a fan of H.P. Lovecraft films, you got to check this one out. Unfortunately, like I said before, it's, you know, you got to import this, but if you can see this online or wherever, definitely check it out. It's one overlooked gem from the 90s. Give this one a really, really great rating. So check out The Resurrected, man. I think you guys will not be disappointed whatsoever. All right, so next up here is a film coming straight out of 1999. Yes, the very last year in the 90s. And this is about the time where, you know, DVDs were coming out now, and there was a lot of films going straight to, you know, VHS and, of course, DVD at the time. And this is one of those films. Now, this is a great example of a film that if I saw this cover art in the movie store, I probably would have walked right by it because, you know, back in, you know, there's certain times in your life when, you know, you rented films based on artwork. You know, if you grew up in the 80s and during that whole VHS era, that's what it was about, you know, the cool cover arts and stuff. Now, this film right here has a really, really terrible cover, and it's not even very representative to the film anyways. But yeah, it's a great example of a film that straight to DVD, probably no one heard about. It was definitely overlooked, you know, kind of sat on the shelf and everyone just kind of blew it off. You know, even if you picked up the back and looked at it, it was from 1999. Oh, what the fuck is this? But yeah, from 1999 is a film called Colobus. This is the American artwork right here. I also have a Region 2 DVD. This artwork's a little bit better. Unfortunately, this one right here is a full screen edition. And of course, I had to pick up the American one because it's the widescreen edition. But basically what the premise is on this one, there's a group of like 5 people that answer this ad in this paper. It's kind of like a free vacation for these 5 people. Kind of put on by this group that's doing this... kind of like this study on people. So all they're asked to do is just kind of move into this house and live normally. And they're going to be watched on camera, and they're going to film everything. And, you know, it's just a case, it's just a study about these people and stuff. So, you know, they're like, well, why not? It's 3 months of free food, free room and board and stuff like that. So all these people kind of jump onto it. And of course, you know, you get introduced to all these kind of strange and eccentric characters and stuff. Our lead character in this film, she's got a little bit of, not mental problems, but she's got anxiety problems. And there's an actress in the house who's very full of herself. And there's a couple others, like a comedian. So you got all these type of, you know, trope, stereotypical characters. But, you know, but there's actually a lot more to these characters than you would actually think. And, of course, you know, they move into this house, everything's going all good, and then, you know, the door's locked, the window's shut, and they start getting picked off one by one. Now, with a premise like that, you're like, wow, it's pretty generic and stuff. You gotta remember, this did come out in 1999. But to be honest, this one is actually executed quite well. It has this very kind of psychological aspect to it from the start right through the whole film, and you don't really know exactly what's going on. You're kind of thinking to yourself, well, this one might kind of go this way or that way or this way, but there's a lot of different angles the way they play up in the story. I thought the screenplay was actually done pretty well. Besides some of the honky and wokey, you know, dialogue in the film, I think the actual story is pretty well executed in this. And it has a really fantastic ending too, but it's a very surprising film because even from the very first kill in this film, you're like, wow, it's actually surprising. It's well done. You know, you don't expect it to happen. So there's a lot of things in the film that are happening like this. And there's a lot of great character development within these characters and stuff because it makes you switch your mind. Like, hey, is this, that, you know, you're like, okay. And that's a sign of a good, you know, good script and stuff. But yeah, the score in this film, really fantastic stuff. It's very influenced by, you know, Italian scores. In fact, the score sounds like something that Claudio Simonetti did. You know, it's very influenced by Suspiria and things like that. So it has this like Italian feel to it. In a sense, it's very odd. It's very, very odd, but it definitely does work for the vibe of the film and stuff. So, yeah, I really enjoyed this one. Pacing's really good overall. I think the pacing's fantastic in this one. Story's really cool. I have read, though, people have a little bit of problems with the end maybe being confusing or a little, maybe to the point of being ambiguous. I kind of disagree with that. I mean, maybe if you're not really fully paying attention, it might be a little bit confused. It's definitely not ambiguous, though. But it's one film definitely worth checking out. Don't let the shitty cover art fool you. This is a great example of a film, a terrible cover art that actually is pretty damn cool. I'm a big fan of these type of character, psychological type films and things like that. I think this one has a lot to offer, and it's definitely something to check out. So Colobus, give it a shot. From 1999. All right, so next up here, jumping into the glorious year of 1995. And now, if you watched episode 1, I did a film from 1995 called Habit, directed by Larry Fessenden. And that was like a very art house, artsy, take on vampirism. Now, this film right here is also from 1995 and is a very artsy take on vampirism. And it is called The Addiction. Directed by Abel Ferrara. I do not own a copy of this. I actually had a VHS copy of this film back in the day, and the tape actually never worked. I only ever got to see like the first 20 minutes of the film, and my tape just didn't work properly. Unfortunately, this one's never been released on DVD here in Region 1. You can probably find copies around, but it's a very obscure film from Abel Ferrara because it just doesn't have that release. Kind of like, The Resurrected in a sense. Very, very sad that it doesn't because, maybe it's because it's from the 90s. Like another reason why the 90s is very, very tough to absorb sometimes because of these things. But, Abel Ferrara, if you're not familiar with this work, he directed Driller Killer, Miss 45, King of New York, Body Snatchers remake. He directed some really cool films. This one right here is a very ambitious type film. It's definitely different from a lot of his other work. This one right here is starring Lily Taylor, of course. Christopher Walken makes a really cool cameo in the film also. It's got Eddie Falco in it. And basically what it is, it's about Lily Taylor's character. She's our main character. She's writing her thesis on, I can't even remember what she's writing her thesis on, to be honest. Something to do with art history or something like that. And anyways, one particular day she's walking down the street and she gets attacked by this other girl. She gets pulled into this alley and she gets her neck bit and stuff. And she ultimately gets the hunger. She's now addicted to blood and stuff. And it's one of these artsy films that never really says vampirism. It's, it's all about, it just uses the term addictive and, things like that, right? You've got the hunger and things like that. It's kind of like The Hunger in a sense. This film right here is shot all in black and white. It's very artsy. It's got a very interesting soundtrack too. Set in the streets of New York. It's got a soundtrack from like Onyx and stuff. It's got music from All We Got Is Us from the time period, because 1995, that's when their album came out and stuff. And it's got this really crazy soundtrack. Really cool stuff. It actually even has Fragile Star in the film. So basically it's a character study of Lily Taylor, and now, as she kind of falls deeper and deeper into her addiction and she's trying to deal with it and stuff. She's trying to write her thesis, but now she's changing because she used to be that person that would go to school every day and, do her work. And she was very focused on what she was doing, but now she isn't. And people around her are noticing that and stuff like that. And basically, it showcases her downfall. This film right here is really, really full of subtext, man. It's got so much metaphorical meaning to it. It's basically one of those films that's kind of like, it's all about, dealing with life and life changes and things like that, and how we deal with addiction and how we deal with, certain elements of our life that are tough to deal with and stuff. There's a lot of things kind of going on in the film. It's a very short film. I think this one only runs like 75 or 80 minutes. Is very, very short. But there's a really great scene in the film involving Lily Taylor's character where she goes to meet up with Christopher Walken, who seems to be like kind of like this head vampire type guy, and she's kind of getting some insight into what she can do to, control herself or, just kind of live through this and stuff. It's a really, really great scene. It's almost too bad that Christopher Walken wasn't in the film more because he's just so damn good. Christopher Walken is one of those characters, he's one of those actors that he can play the best good guy, he can play the best bad guy because he has that look. He looks like you can trust him, and he also looks like you can't trust him. But when he's playing a bad guy, he pulls it off so well because he's so damn menacing. It's the way he delivers everything. It's almost chilling watching him in this film. It's really fantastic. I love the subtext of this film. I love how this kind of all played out. And so it gets really batshit crazy towards the end. It's really interesting. It's one of those films where it's just so artsy. It's really from its time period. In the early 90s, mid to 90s, there was a lot of these kind of art house films and stuff. And go figure that there would be 2 showcased in the first 2 episodes of this series from the same year that are very art house vampire type films. It's great, man. I think this is a very, very overlooked, and this might even be right up there with one of the best Abel Ferrara films that he's ever done. I think Miss 45 might even be his best film. It's my favorite rape revenge film, but this one right here is a great, great overlooked film, and probably due to the fact it doesn't have a release, which really sucks. So, give this film a shot, man. It's awesome, man. I just love the whole aspect of the whole self-preservation, and just the whole subtext of this film is fantastic. It's really not that hard to catch on to it. You can understand what's going on in it. It's a very short film, and the way he presents this film too is interesting, because it's very kind of it's not choppy, but things happen at such a rapid pace. It's like, wow, like, holy shit, that's happening and stuff. And the film doesn't even feel overly fast. Just certain things happen fast in the film, if that makes any type of sense. It's a very interesting type of filmmaking. It feels very guerrilla style. It feels very low budget, but not low budget at the same time. It's cool. It's got a really interesting kind of feel and atmosphere to the film. So definitely give The Addiction a shot. Really fantastic stuff from 1995. Alrighty, so moving into the glorious year of 1992 with Richard Stanley's second full-length film. His first full-length film was called Hardware. It's like a post-apocalyptic sci-fi type horror. Really kind of cool, strange film. I know some people don't really care for it. I think it's really kind of batshit awesome. But this film right here from 1992 was plagued by a little bit of a history. When it first got released, it was cut to shit. Like, I mean, we're talking like 30, 40 minutes out of the film and stuff. So a lot of people got to see that cut version, which was really kind of unfair for the film, because there is a lot of things in this film that you get to see in the ultimate cut of it, which I'll show in a minute here, that explain what was going on from that cut version. Such a shame. So this one had a kind of a bad rap right off the bat. I think Richard Stanley just totally got did wrong in the 90s. It's really kind of crazy stuff. But of course, from 1992 is his second film called Dust Devil. This is a great film that's just pretty much, I don't know why this one is so overlooked, but I talk to people and they're like, I've never really seen it, or I've seen it and I didn't really like it. And I'm like, have you seen this cut of the film? They're like, no. Unfortunately, yeah, this edition is very, very hard to come by now. I mean, you can still find it, but it is out of print and stuff. But if you can get your hands on the ultimate cut, just watch the ultimate director's cut or whatever it's called. That's the version of this film to see. Basically, what we got here, we've got our main character. He's kind of a shape-shifting demon. And what he does is he is really kind of stalking the highways in South Africa, and he's looking for kind of down on their luck, very depressed women and stuff. That's how he feeds. He feeds on these type of women. So he gets picked up. He's pretty much a hitchhiker. He gets picked up. He takes them into a hotel, kind of wines and dines them and stuff, and then ends up killing them because he actually needs parts of them to kind of feed on. Because what has happened to him, he's kind of come through the other side and he's stuck in the real world as a human, and he needs to kind of feed on people's souls and stuff like that to get him back to the other side. So this is what he's doing. He's preying on women and stuff. Along comes our main character, and she picks him up and stuff, and then all this kind of crazy shit starts happening between the two. They start up this relationship, and then it just goes batshit crazy. It's a very, very, again, ambitious film. There's a lot of shit going on here, a lot of crazy mythology to do with demons and witchcraft and black magic and stuff. There's a whole police investigative portion of this film where the investigators having all these visions and stuff that kind of play into what's going on in the front story of the film. It's a very hypnotic, mind-altering, atmospheric film. It's a very, very beautifully shot film. It's shot in South Africa, and it's just shot in the desolate lands of sand, and it's just absolutely beautiful. It's very mesmerizing and visually stunning while you watch it. It's one of those films where when you watch, you go, damn, it's really damn cool. Like, it just takes a lot of ambition to kind of shoot in those conditions and stuff like that. So, but I do like the whole black magic aspect, witchcraft of this stuff, and to do with demons. And there's certain things that aren't fully explained in the film, which are actually kind of a good thing. I think the things that are explained is enough for this film. So, but I mean, essentially, again, what Richard Stanley's trying to do here, it's a very metaphorical type film. It can be very psychological at times too, which is a good thing. And a film like this right here, where you're dealing with these type of things that are kind of intersecting, it's very interesting to note that it's not a very gory film, considering what this demon is doing. He's going around killing women, severing off parts, and there is some gore scenes in this film. In fact, there's actually one really memorable head explosion in this film. Very, very awesome shit. I will say that just to get people, pique their interest a little bit more. But it's really, really awesome. But yeah, it doesn't rely on heavy gore and stuff. It's more about, the psychological aspect of this shape-shifting demon and the story within the mythology and stuff. Because the actual shape-shifting demon in this film is based on a real-life serial killer that happened in South Africa, which is very cool. This is just Richard Stanley's take on that story. And you really twist it up really nice. I think it's really well done. It's very, very cool stuff. I love this whole supernatural elements to it. I think it's fantastic. Really cool stuff. It's a strange film, not really overly confusing or anything, but, it has its moments and stuff. Another really interesting aspect of this film is that it was actually done pretty much all in the daytime. And it's haunting. It has this awesome fantasy atmosphere to this film, and it's all shot in the day for the most part, but it really does work. It's kind of got this offbeat, kind of dreamlike, hypnotic state to it. I think that, the feel that he created for this film is second to none. It really is. It's just, it's awesome. It has this impending doom kind of feel to the film the whole time you're watching. Is really damn cool. The soundtrack is absolutely phenomenal. It's done by Simon Boswell. The music is just phenomenal. If you guys understand what I just said there, that's kind of funny. He actually did the music for Phenomena, Dario Argento's film. He did Demons and things like that. He's done lots. He worked on a lot of really, really cool films and stuff. And of course Dust Devil also. But yeah, it's a really, really great film. I think this one climaxes. The third act is really cool in this film. It's very strange and odd, but I think it really does work. And it's definitely one of those underrated, overlooked, hidden gems from the 90s. I know people know about this film. It's just a shame that not a lot of people have actually seen the real cut of this film. It does run, I think this version of the film is about 2 hours long, so it does run pretty long, but in my opinion, it's never boring. It's very invoking and polarizing while you're watching this film, so I couldn't say enough good adjectives to describe this film. It's really fantastic stuff, but it's an oddity. It's definitely a vision that, that Richard Stanley had, and, only I think he could do this type of film because he was definitely a visionary. So check out Dust Devil. It's a really fantastic film. Yeah. Alrighty, so jumping into the awesome year, which we actually did a top 10 of 1996 show on the podcast. So if you guys follow the podcast, you guys know that I've talked about this film, and a few other people have too. But this is probably one of the most insane films, not only of the 90s, but really of all time, man. The storyline to this film is completely ridiculous and over the top, but it works on so many levels. It's actually a really well executed film. It's got a lot of really good parts and stuff in it. Of course, in 1996, we're talking about Ebola Syndrome. Now, this is one of these 90s gems that I didn't even see until a few years back, and this one's awesome. It really is so damn cool. Basically, what it's about Anthony Wong's character. It tells a little bit of backstory in the beginning of the film where something happens in Hong Kong where he lived, and he ends up killing these people. And he basically takes off from there, ends up in South Africa again, actually. And where he's now, it's like 10 years later, and he's been working in this restaurant and stuff. One particular day, he heads off with the owner to go find some meat from this weird kind of African tribe type deal. Because it's like the cheapest way to get the meat and stuff. Anyway, so they go down there, some shit goes down. Anthony Wong is a sick fuck. He ends up raping this woman who has Ebola. And he actually ends up getting Ebola himself, but of course he is the one in a billion that actually can recover from Ebola. But the problem is, after he recovers from the Ebola virus, he still carries it. And he starts spreading it, and on purpose at times. So this one goes into a whole nother level, a whole place where you just it's just sick as fuck, really. I mean, there's Ebola burgers in this film. There's a whole pile of just nasty shit. I don't want to give specifics about it, but basically it's about Anthony Wong's character who has this Ebola virus, and he's using it to his benefit because he's a very pissed off individual, and he goes around and ultimately uses it to kill people. So yeah, really ridiculous film. It's more or less, it's not played straightforward. It's pretty much a comedy. But the visuals and the things that you're seeing in this film, you're just it's jaw-dropping at times. It's so ridiculously over the top, but so much fun. So much fun. Anthony Wong's performance in this is second to none. It's like watching a train wreck when you're laughing, and you just can't stop laughing. It's ridiculous, man. It's so much fun. Definitely one of the most insane stories out there. But this one has last 30 minutes of this film are some of the most memorable cinematic moments in history. It's like ridiculous because even if you're not even digging the film, you got to watch it even for the end. It's just so batshit insane. I recommend this, man. This is, of course, an Asian film that you're gonna have to read the subtitles for. So if you're not into that, that sucks. But highly recommend this one. It's one of the most batshit insane films, really, of all time. It's really, really crazy stuff. But I mean, if you're familiar with Anthony Wong's work and stuff, this is a must-see on all levels, just for some of the shit that he does and some of the things that he says, and oh my god, this is one of the most entertaining films out there. So, Ebola Syndrome, of course directed by Herman Yeo, who did The Untold Story, which is another batshit insane film, with, of course, Anthony Wong. But, gotta check this one out. I don't want to give too much about it away. I've talked about this one to death, but another real awesome gem from 1996. And yeah, so that is going to do it for episode 2 here on the 1990 What series. Yeah, if you guys have any recommendations, don't hesitate to throw them my ways. I already have like a bunch more episodes already planned out and stuff like that. In fact, actually, somebody commented on my first video and said, I hope you're going to do The Addiction. And I already had it planned to do, which I thought was really cool. I can't remember who the YouTuber was, but that's awesome that you thought of that, because I already had it planned out, which is awesome. But yeah, things like that. And I'm gonna have a couple episodes that are specific to certain kind of subgenres and stuff like that. Like one in particular is gonna be episode 4 that I'm gonna do. It's going to be just kind of showcasing these certain type of films from the 90s that I think are really cool. I mean, they're not like hidden gems or not hidden gems, but they're not like obscure and things like that. But, things that the 90s has to offer. So I hope you guys are enjoying the series, man. This is really, really fun to do. It's been fun, even watching all those films, because I have been rewatching all these films before I've been doing them and stuff. So which I love doing. It's really, really fantastic. So thanks for all the support, guys. And this is episode Dukes. And I'll check you guys later. And as usual, peace. Time for some coffee. See ya.